The day my son's wife called me a stranger in my own home, I felt something die inside me. I was just standing there in that kitchen, same kitchen where I raised my boy, taught him how to pray, how to eat with grace. And she looked me in the eye and said, "May, you shouldn't be here without asking first." Ask? Baby, I built that house with my own hands. I stitched every curtain, polished every memory, and she wanted me to ask? My son didn't say a word. He just kept his eyes on the floor, like my pain was too heavy for him to look at. That silence was louder than any scream I've ever heard. I remember holding the table edge to keep from falling. My heart was knocking against my ribs, begging me not to break in front of her. I smiled, just a little broken smile, and said, "Well, I guess I'll ask next time, sweetheart." There was no next time. 3 days later, I packed a small bag, a Bible, 2 dresses, and the last picture of me holding my baby boy. I closed the door behind me like I was closing a life. Now, sugar, before I go on, if you ever had a moment where family made you feel small, where you had to walk away just to protect your peace, then you understand me. Don't forget to like this video, baby, and tell me in the comments if you've ever had to choose silence over pain. Anyway, I moved to a small town 3 hours away. Quiet place, just the sound of birds and a leaky roof to keep me company. Every morning I'd sit by the window, drinking my coffee, watching the sun crawl up like it was trying to find me again. For 3 years, nobody called, not even my boy. Not for Christmas, not for my birthday, not even when I got sick that one winter. I tell myself, "May, he's busy. He's got a wife now, let him be." But every night I'd stare at my phone like it was a piece of my heart that forgot how to ring. And baby, loneliness is a thief. It don't just take your time, it steals your reflection. I'd look in the mirror and see someone older, quieter, smaller, like a ghost wearing my own skin. One night, I found myself talking to God, whispering like he was sitting right beside me. "Lord," I said, "if this silence is what love becomes, then teach me how to live without it. Teach me how to stop waiting for a door that ain't gonna open." And maybe he heard me. Maybe he was just waiting for me to let go, 'cause the very next morning, something changed. My phone rang. I froze. That ringtone sounded like a heartbeat coming back to life. When I picked it up, my hands were shaking. "Hello?" It was my son's voice, soft, tired, like it had walked through fire. "Ma," he said, I need your help." And just like that, 3 years of silence turned into a storm. He said her name, his wife, and I could hear pain behind every word. "She's sick, Ma, real sick. The doctors don't know what's wrong. She keeps asking for you." I didn't know what to feel. That woman had torn me out of my own family picture, and now she was asking for me? I didn't say much, just told him I'd pray. But deep inside, a war started. One side of me said, "Don't go back, May. Let 'em taste what they served you." The other side whispered, "Forgive, child. God's mercy ain't a coin you flip when you feel like it." I sat all day, thinking, rocking in my chair like the answers were hiding in the creaks of the wood. By sunset, I packed that same little bag, Bible, 2 dresses, 1 old photograph. Now, baby, before I tell you what happened when I saw her again, I want you to tell me in the comments, what would you do if the person who broke you was now the one begging for your help? Would you forgive or would you walk away? Make sure you like this video and subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. 'Cause what I saw when I walked into that hospital room, it changed everything about pain, love, and God's plan. When I opened that hospital door, everything went quiet, like even the walls knew not to breathe. My son was sitting on the edge of that white bed, head buried in his hands. And there she was, the same woman who once threw my wedding photo in the trash. Now pale as a ghost, wires running through her arm, lips trembling like a prayer gone cold. I wanted to feel angry, baby. I wanted to remember every cruel word she ever said to me. But all I saw was fear in her eyes, and sometimes fear can humble even the proudest heart. May, my son whispered. He hadn't called me mama in 3 years. Just May, like I was a neighbor, not the woman who gave him life. She needs blood. Her type's rare. The hospital's running low. I felt my heart stutter. He couldn't even look me in the eye when he said it. That's how shame sounds, sugar. It doesn't need words. I stepped closer, my hands shaking. What type she need? He looked up, eyes red. Oh, negative. Now, I don't believe in coincidences, but sometimes God writes irony in bold letters. Because I'm O negative. The same woman she called a stranger was the only one who could save her life. I ain't gonna lie, baby, I froze. Every hurt, every insult, every lonely dinner came crawling back like ghosts at my table. And yet, something deep inside whispered, May, you were raised better than hate. So I rolled up my sleeve. The nurse hooked me up, and as that warm blood flowed out of me into her veins, I looked at my son. He was crying, not loud, just quiet, guilty tears, the kind that burn. Why you crying? I asked. He shook his head. I don't deserve you, Mama. I didn't answer. I just smiled weakly and said, you don't get to deserve your mama, baby. You just get to have one. Now, sugar, if this moment hit your heart like it hit mine, you best tap that like button and let me know you still believe in second chances. And tell me in the comments, could you forgive someone who threw you out of their life? Hours passed. The transfusion was done. Doctor came in, said she'd make it. My son hugged me for the first time in years, real tight, like he was trying to squeeze all the lost time out of me. But what he didn't know was that this story wasn't done, not by a long shot. 2 weeks later, I was back home, sitting on my porch when a car pulled up. It was her, my daughter-in-law, Lila. She stepped out, holding a small basket of muffins like that could fix the years between us. May, she said softly, I don't even know how to thank you. I looked at her, then at the basket. You baked forgiveness and blueberry? She smiled nervously. I guess so. I motioned her to sit. We sat there in silence, just the sound of the wind and 1,000 unsaid words floating between us. Then she said, I know you hate me. I sighed. Hate's easy, baby. Hurt's harder. Her eyes filled. I was jealous. You had a bond with him that I didn't. I thought if I pushed you out, he'd choose me, but I only pushed him away too. I listened. Every word sliced through me, but there was truth in her pain. Jealousy's a mean thing, I said. It don't just steal love, it steals peace. We talked till the sun started dying on the horizon, and for the first time, I saw her not as the girl who took my son, but as the woman who was still learning how to love him. When she left that night, she hugged me, tight, like maybe she was hugging her second chance. I thought that was the end of it, sugar, but you know life. Soon as you think it's calm, that storm just reloads. A week later, I got a call from my son. His voice was shaky. Mama, there's something wrong with the baby. My heart dropped. Which baby? Our baby, he said. Lila's pregnant, early, but the doctor says it's complicated. I felt the room spin. After everything we just healed, another test was coming, and I knew this one wasn't about blood. It was about faith. I grabbed my purse, headed for that same hospital again, and as I drove, I whispered to the Lord, "Please, don't let me lose 'em now that I finally got 'em back." The air was heavy that night. Something about the way the sky looked told me this chapter wasn't just about forgiveness, it was about what comes after. When I reached the hospital, I saw my son standing outside the emergency doors, pale as the moon. He didn't say a word, just looked at me with that same look he had weeks ago, the kind that makes a mother's heart stop. Inside, I could hear the machines again, that same rhythmic beeping, history repeating itself, but louder this time. Now listen, sugar, before I tell you what I saw when I walked into that room, make sure you've hit that subscribe button, because what happened next, even I wasn't ready for. When I walked into that room, sugar, my knees almost gave out. The air was thick, like sorrow had filled every corner. There was Leela, hooked up to machines again, her hand resting on her belly, and my son standing beside her like a ghost who forgot how to breathe. The doctor looked up and sighed. "She's stable for now, but the baby's in distress. We might have to make a choice." A choice. That word hit me like thunder. You never want to hear that word when it's your blood on the line. I stepped closer. "What choice you talking about, doctor?" He looked at me, then at my son. "It's early, but if we try to save both, we might lose both." My son's eyes failed. No, please, there has to be another way." I reached for his shoulder. "Baby, breathe. We can't fall apart now." He looked at me, voice breaking. "Mama, she's all I got." And in that moment, I realized he wasn't talking about his wife. He was talking about that baby, the one he hadn't even met yet. I whispered, "Then pray, son, because when doctors reach their limit, that's where God starts his work." I was past. The hallway clock ticked louder than my heartbeat. Every tick felt like a prayer unanswered. Finally, the doctor came back. "She's asking for you, Mrs. May." I walked in, and Leela turned her head slowly toward me. Her face was pale, but her eyes, they were full of something new. Not fear, not pride, but peace. "May," she whispered, "if anything happens, promise me you'll take care of him and the baby." I felt my throat tighten. "Don't you talk like that, girl. You gonna walk out of here yourself." She smiled faintly. "You're stronger than me. Always were." Her hand trembled as she reached for mine. "Tell him I'm sorry for every wall I built between us." Before I could answer, the monitor started beeping fast. Doctors rushed in, yelling codes I couldn't understand. They pushed me out, closed the door, and I stood there in the hallway frozen. I could hear my son shouting inside. And I swear, sugar, in that moment, I felt time stop. I pressed my hand to my chest and whispered, "Lord, don't take her. Not like this. Not when we just started mending." Then, silence. The door opened. Doctor walked out, face somber. "She's alive," he said softly, "but we had to deliver early. The baby's in NICU." Relief washed over me like rain after a long drought. But when I saw the look in my son's eyes, I knew the storm wasn't over. He sat beside her bed, holding her weak hand. "Mama," he whispered, "the baby's so small. They said he might not make it." I swallowed hard. Then we pray harder. We prayed all night, didn't sleep, didn't eat, just whispered to God with cracked voices. Morning came and a nurse entered. "Mrs. May, we need you in the NICU. There's something you should see." My heart dropped again. When I stepped inside, I saw the tiniest baby I'd ever seen, wrapped in tubes and wires, fighting for every breath. He looked like a miracle trying to remember how to live. The nurse pointed to the chart. "His blood type's rare," she said. "We might need a donor again." I froze. "Oh, negative." She nodded. I laughed, not out of joy, out of disbelief. "Lord," I said, "you sure know how to keep me busy." So I gave again, my blood, my strength, my forgiveness flowing into that tiny body. And when I looked through that glass, I whispered, "You don't know me yet, little one, but you already got my heart." Now, sugar, if this moment touched you, if you believe some love don't need DNA to be real, hit that like button and tell me in the comments, who taught you what real family means? Days passed. The baby started breathing better. The doctor said he was a fighter. And Leela, she was slowly coming back, too. One evening, my son came to me outside the nursery. "Mama," he said softly, "I need to tell you something." I looked at him, my heart calm for the first time in years. "What is it, baby?" He hesitated. "The baby, he's not mine." The words hit like cold steel. For a second, I didn't move, didn't blink. The world just stopped. He continued, tears spilling down. "She told me after the surgery, said it was a mistake from before we got back together, but she didn't know how to tell me." I stepped back. The hallway started spinning. That baby, the one I bled for, prayed for, loved like my own. I whispered, "You sure, son?" He nodded, sobbing. "He's not mine." But then I said something I didn't even plan to say. "Doesn't matter." He looked up, confused. "What?" I took his hands. "That baby's innocent. He didn't ask for none of this. You can walk away if you want, but me, I already claimed him." My son broke down, buried his face in my chest like he was 5 again. And I just held him, whispering, "Family ain't always about blood, baby. Sometimes it's about who bleeds for you." Now, sugar, before I tell you what happened when Leela woke up and heard what we knew, make sure you're subscribed, because this next part, it'll test every ounce of forgiveness I ever had left. When I walked back into that room, Leela was awake. She looked small, fragile, like the truth had already taken half her breath. The baby was still in NICU, fighting to stay. And my son, he sat in the corner, face in his hands again, just like that first night. The room was quiet. But silence, baby, it ain't peace. Sometimes silence is just guilt wearing perfume. Leela turned her head toward me. "May," she whispered, "did he tell you?" I nodded slow. He did. Tears rolled down her cheeks. "I didn't mean for it to happen. I swear, it was before we made things right. I was lost, lonely. I thought he'd never forgive me for what I did to you." I pulled up a chair, sat right beside her bed. "You trying to tell me that betraying my son was somehow my fault?" She shook her head, crying. "No, I'm saying if I hadn't been so angry, maybe I wouldn't have looked for love in the wrong place." I sighed. Anger don't excuse betrayal, baby. It just dresses it in prettier words. She reached out, tried to touch my hand, but I kept mine still. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, she whispered, but please don't hate the baby. He didn't do anything wrong. I looked at her, eyes heavy with everything I'd seen. Hate a baby? Girl, I've buried hate long before you were born. But you? I paused. You gon' have to live with this truth. And living with truth hurts worse than dying from lies. My son finally looked up, eyes swollen from tears. Ma, I don't know what to do. I turned to him. You do what a man's supposed to do. Decide what kind of father you want to be. Blood or no blood, that child's still a gift. But forgiveness, that's your mountain to climb. He didn't say a word, just stood up and walked out the room. And baby, the way that door clicked shut, it sounded like the end of something sacred. Leela sobbed quietly. He'll never look at me the same. I leaned in closer. Then you better pray that someday he looks at you through God's eyes instead of his own. I stood to leave, but she grabbed my wrist. May, please don't walk out on me. I turned back slow. Funny, I said. That's what I used to whisper when y'all forgot me. Her hand fell back on the bed, weak. I'm sorry, she said again. And maybe it was the pain in her voice, or maybe it was that baby down the hall fighting for life. But something in me cracked. I sat back down. Listen, sugar, I done learned something in all my years. God don't always give us the family we want. He gives us the one we need to teach us how to love right. She started crying harder. I don't deserve another chance. I said, none of us do. That's why it's called grace, not wages. Now, sugar, if you ever forgave somebody who didn't deserve it, tap that like button and tell me in the comments, what did it cost you to let go? We stayed there quiet a long time. Then, suddenly, a nurse ran in. Mrs. May, come quick. My heart jumped. What is it? It's the baby. His oxygen's dropping. I rushed down the hall, feeling like my heart was running ahead of me. When I reached the NICU window, I saw doctors moving fast, tiny chest pumping, alarms screaming. I pressed my hand against the glass. Lord, please, don't take him, not him. And just like that, the monitor steadied. Flat lines turned into heartbeats again. He made it. The nurse looked at me through the glass and smiled, whispering, your blood saved him again. I broke down right there. Couldn't hold it. All the pain, all the love, all the forgiveness pouring out of me like the blood I'd given twice now. That night, my son came to my porch again. He didn't say a word at first, just stood there looking at the stars. Ma, he said finally, I'm gonna raise him. I nodded. I knew you would. He smiled faintly. You always knew. I looked at him, eyes tearing up. Mothers always know, even when they wish they didn't. He stepped closer. I'm sorry for how I treated you. I touched his face. Don't be sorry, baby. Just don't forget again. We stood there quiet, listening to the night crickets singing like the world was starting fresh. But the story wasn't over yet, sugar, 'cause forgiveness might heal hearts, but secrets don't die easy. The next morning, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. A man's voice, low and nervous. Mrs. May, he said, you don't know me, but I think that baby might be mine. I froze. The phone nearly slipped out of my hand. What did you just say? He repeated, my name's Aaron. I used to work with Leela. She told me months ago she was pregnant, but then she disappeared. I found out she had the baby. I just need to know if he's okay. My knees went weak. I looked out the window at my son, sitting on the porch swing, smiling for the first time in years. He had no idea. I said into the phone, voice steady but shaken inside. He's alive, but you listen to me, Aaron. Don't you dare show up here yet. That boy's got enough pain to last 2 lifetimes. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I just want to do right this time. I hung up slow. My hand was trembling. Now, baby, before I tell you what I did next, hit that subscribe button, because what comes after this, even forgiveness got limits. When I hung up that phone, sugar, my hands wouldn't stop shaking. Truth has a way of trembling through your bones before it ever leaves your lips. That man's voice kept echoing, I just want to do right this time. But doing right ain't always doing easy. I walked outside. The sun was rising, painting gold on my boy's face. He was sitting on that porch swing, humming to himself. Peace looked good on him, like a suit he finally grew into. And I thought, Lord, what do I do with this truth? I sat beside him. He smiled. Morning, Mama. Morning, baby. For a while, we just rocked in silence, wood creaking under the weight of everything unspoken. Then he said, You know, I dreamed last night that Daddy came by, said he was proud of me. I smiled, even though my throat burned. He probably is. He looked at me, serious now. I'm proud, too, of us. We made it through. My heart twisted, 'cause he didn't know the storm was still hovering right above him. Later that day, I went back to the hospital to see Lila and the baby. The little one had grown stronger, still tiny, but breathing easy now. Lila held him close, eyes soft, voice gentle. May, she said, thank you for not giving up on us. I wanted to tell her everything about the call, the man, the truth pressing on my chest like a stone. But when I looked at her arms wrapped around that baby, I saw something pure, and I knew this secret could tear it all apart. She looked up at me. He needs a name. I smiled faintly. Then give him one that means grace, 'cause that's all that's keeping us standing. She nodded. Eli. It means lifted up. Eli, I whispered. Sounds like a name heaven would answer to. Now, sugar, if you ever had to choose between truth and peace, tap that like button, 'cause you know that choice don't come cheap. That night when I got home, I found an envelope slid under my door. No name on it, just a folded piece of paper inside. It said, thank you for saving my son. There was a photo, too, of that man, Aaron, standing outside the hospital window, looking in at the nursery. He hadn't tried to see them, just stood watching. I sank down on the couch, tears spilling. He kept his promise. He stayed away. Weeks went by. Lila came home, the baby thriving. My son fixed the old crib from the attic, painted it new. The house smelled like milk and hope again. But sometimes, late at night, I'd catch him staring at that baby's face, a look between wonder and ache. I knew he still thought about the truth, and I knew he was waiting for me to say something. One evening, as the sun went down, he said, Mama, can I ask you something? Course, baby. He hesitated. You believe God ever lets us keep secrets for a reason? I took a deep breath. I think sometimes he lets us hold them long enough to understand they ain't ours to break. He nodded slow. Maybe that's what this one is. I turned my eyes to that crib. Eli smiled in his sleep, tiny hand curling around air like he was holding peace itself. Maybe some truths ain't meant to shatter homes, just hearts wide enough to hold forgiveness. The next Sunday, we went to church together. People whispered when they saw me walking in with my son, his wife, and that baby. But I didn't care. I just held that child tight while the choir sang Amazing Grace. After service, the pastor came up and smiled. Looks like your family's been through the valley, May. I smiled back. Yes, sir, but we came out carrying something holy. He nodded. That baby got a bright future. I looked down at Eli. He already shining, Pastor. He just don't know it yet. As we walked out, sunlight poured through the stained glass windows, red, blue, gold, coloring us like God was painting over all our cracks. And in that moment, I knew the truth would stay with me, not as a lie, but as mercy. 'Cause sometimes, sugar, protecting the ones you love means carrying a burden they don't have the strength to bear. So I whispered to that baby as we stepped outside, "Don't you worry about where you came from, Eli. Just grow into where you're loved." He yawned, tiny fingers grabbing my necklace, the one with my husband's ring on it. And I swear, I felt peace settle in my soul for the first time in years. I looked at my son and said, "You did good, baby." He smiled. "We did, Mama. We did." We walked home together, slow and quiet, like the world had finally learned how to breathe again. Now, sugar, if this story touched you, if it reminded you that family ain't about perfection, but about love that stays, then don't you scroll just yet. Hit that like, share it with somebody who needs forgiveness today, and tell me in the comments what part of this journey stayed with you. 'Cause somewhere out there, another soul needs to know that mercy still lives here.